And welcome to another edition of the Counseling Experience. We appreciate you for tuning in and appreciate all of the different technological advances. There's lighting, there's iPads, there's computers that are just able to put everything live on the air. And just feel like we're in a time where it's just so easy to get some really positive information out to everyone. And today we're going to talk about attunement, or really it boils down to relationship trust. And relationship trust is something it's the key to a healthy relationship. And trust me, I've been on both sides of the camera on relationship trust. I've been burned and lied to, and I've probably burned some people and lied to some people, and it's embarrassing to admit, but it's the reality is it's a tough world, and sometimes I can get caught up in wanting to impress, and so I'll say things maybe a little bit blown up, a little bit puffed up, bigger than it really is, and then I'll think, why did I do that? And it's hard to go back and fix it. And then there's other times where one of my things, I don't know what yours are, but one of my things is I don't like to disappoint people. And I'll almost do anything to not disappoint you, though people that know me know that I've probably disappointed them at some time or another. But it drives me, and so there's times where I'll even I'll fudge on honesty if I can trick you into not being disappointed in me. And I don't know if you've ever tried that or if you've ever done that yourself before. But what you want to do is stop it. And we're going to talk today about some different ways to stop that. And I'm trying to figure out how to get that shadow out of it. I guess I don't worry about that. So this idea of stopping um, mid sentence, even sometimes stopping mid sentence, is important to the idea of building a trusting relationship. And what I mean by stopping mid sentence, and that would be if something's coming out of your mouth that's just um, not quite honest or not all the way true, then just stop, fix it. Say, wait a minute, I didn't mean to say. I was talking with my buddy. His name's Braxton the other day, and he was saying something. He was saying, I can't remember the exact context of it, and he stopped mid sentence. He says, "Well, wait a minute, that wasn't exactly true," and then he fixed it and said the truth, and we moved on. It was healthy looking, and I thought, man, we need to all take a quick gut check of ourselves and assess our level of integrity, our level of honesty. And I know all of you want to be honest. I know all of you want to be seen as honest. And somewhere in your soul, all of us, including myself, you, everyone that's not listening, we have these triggers that throw us into another train track where we head down a trail of maybe covering up or leaving things out or not quite telling the whole truth, and it can just create pain. And sometimes they're great big issues. Sometimes it's literally lying to cover up um, some kind of a harmful thing that you've done, a sin that you've committed, and other times we lie to make ourselves look good. And I'm telling you that this is obnoxious, but sometimes we lie to make other people feel good. Now, I get it. If my wife's dress is ugly, it's okay to say, "Great dress. I'm glad you're wearing. I'm glad you got a dress on." Um, that sounded creepy. I didn't mean it that way. But the whole point is you might not tell her you hate the dress because it's based on your opinion. If she likes the dress, have her wear the dress and just be happy. But if your wife is asking you how the marriage is and you're feeling some things are off, it's important to tell the truth and say, you know what, there's some things are just a little bit off and we need to talk. And it's not okay to say, yep, everything's fine, and then just keep stuffing these feelings down and not being transparent, not being honest with each other. And so today we're going to talk about how to be honest and how to really spend some time with each other in a relationship. And it could be, I'm going to refer to a marriage relationship. I'm on a college campus, Dixie State University, and there's a lot of young people on this campus that are looking towards an engagement and married, and there's a lot of married couples on campus. And so we're going to talk about marriages, but this could just as easily be with a business partner. It could easily be with a child, a son, a daughter. It could easily be with peers that are out playing frisbee football together. The same attention needs to be given to this integritous, transparent relationship. Now, When I say transparency, a lot of people say, yeah, I want to be transparent in my relationship, but I don't ever want to be embarrassed. I don't want to look bad, and I don't want to feel bad. And I don't want to make them feel bad. Well, sometimes being transparent is being able to look bad or being able to say the hard things to the people you're with so that they can be better. And that's the name of this show is Attunement, How to Have a Transparent Relationship. And I'm going to give you at least 6 really clear ideas. Dr. Matt Eschler is who I am. I'm with the Southern Utah Counseling Experience, and today coming at you live from Dixie State University on KDXI 100.3. And part of what I do here in Southern Utah right now is marriage counseling with high conflict marriages. And I love working with high conflict marriages because they are real, genuine, and generally very raw. You don't have a lot of game playing. There is some, I get it, but you don't have a ton of it. You don't have a lot of like coming in and just trying to gloss over and make things look good. By the time they're sitting on my couch, getting some help with their relationship, they've done all of the glossing over, all of the stuffing feelings. They've done all the screaming and yelling that they can really handle. And now they're right on the verge of killing the relationship. And we're able to sit down and in just a very real way determine what's missing and can we make it happen. And part of the program, part of a Southern Utah Counseling Experience that is now combined with St. George Center for Couples and Families, part of what we do is we help people bring that together and determine here's the missing principles, here's the missing laws of relationship, and here's your side of the street, and here's your side of the street. Are you willing to work on yours and not his? And are you willing to work on yours and not hers? And then they start this long process of building the 2 pillars of a healthy relationship. There's a whole bunch of components to a healthy relationship, but it all rides on commitment and trust. I want you to think about those 2 terms, commitment and trust. If you trust each other but lack commitment, what's the relationship going to look like? Yeah, I think you nailed it there. If you trust each other, like, hey, I trust you got my best interest in mind. I trust that you care for me. But if there's no commitment, then you don't make agreements or keep them with each other. See, trust can only go so far without commitment because you, in a committed relationship, you make agreements and then you keep them. Have you ever been in a relationship where you make agreements and you almost start to get this knowing that they're not going to keep their end of the bargain? Like, hey, let's go out sometime. All right, yeah, when? All right, how about Friday? And in the back of your mind, if you start to say, I know they're not going to show up Friday, then there's no commitment in that relationship. There's not, and I'm not suggesting that it's either's fault. I'm just suggesting that if you know that it's going to fall through, before it falls through, you know they're not going to be keeping their word, then you know that you asking them to is futile. And so your role in the codependency perhaps is you keep asking them to keep their word, and theirs is they don't have the integrity to keep their word. Or maybe it's that you don't make it known to them that you expect it. You don't solid up the agreement. There's all kinds of, but you have to look at your side of the road and determine what you're doing in that relationship. And it might be the boundaries you get out of the relationship, or it might be the boundaries you tighten up your agreement language. And it's like, so you will be there at 6 p.m. and I can count on that, correct? And if they say yes, then you expect it. And that's really what we're talking about. We're talking about this keeping agreements to move the relationship to a higher place. And so that's what commitment does. You make commitments to each other or agreements with each other. And so those 2 pillars, learning to trust and be trustworthy, and learning to do commitment, which means make agreements and keep them. Now, I want to highlight one thing here that a lot of couples that I meet with that are in high conflict, and again, this could be any relationship, but in a marriage relationship, this is particularly painful, that they show up and they sit on the couch and they both have a really clear, strong idea of what the other one's doing wrong. She can sit down and she can say, I want you to know that he is the biggest jerk in the world. He blows money left and right. He gambles. He drinks. I didn't sign up for any of that, and he will come to bed every night and he'll start pawing at me, and it's miserable, and I don't know what gives him the right to do that. And I'll get a laundry list of his weaknesses, and then it's his turn to do the same, and he'll do the same thing and talk about how she's cold-hearted and how she's never really been a partner to him, that she's constantly criticizing and critical of him, and that he feels like she's probably cheated on him with the neighbor, and she's probably never loved him from the start. And then he'll just give this whole list of how she doesn't adore him enough. And they both feel like, whew, we just got all of that out. See how transparent we are. I want to tell you that transparency is not being the window into your lover's soul. Do you hear that? Ooh, hard for some people. Transparency is not you being the window into the soul of your lover. See, what transparency is when you're willing to open the window to your soul and tell on yourself. What if this couple came in and sat on the couch and said, all right, here's what I do. I spend too much money. I got it. I'm just have a tough time with money. I have a tough time managing it. I have a tough time saving. I'm really a train wreck financially. And I gamble. I've got this addiction to gambling. I curse too much. I mean, what if that person came in and talked about his weaknesses by being transparent, opening up a window to his own soul instead of his partner's, and just put that all out on the table, and then at the end says, I want help with all of those things one at a time. And then what if she said, I'm critical. I put him down more than I build him up, and I recognize that that's harmful to this relationship. Now, even when I did this on the radio and I played both sides of the fence, even when I tattled on and was tattled upon, didn't you feel a hostile spirit in your car, home, wherever you're listening? And when I opened up a transparent window to my soul, and when just in role play spoke about my issues, did you notice there's a spirit of cooperation? Like, I hope you felt that, because I felt it in here. And the thing I'm talking about, that feeling, is one creates tension. One creates argument. It's mandatory. The other one, there's no argument. If I'm telling you I am terrible with money, I guess you could say, no, you're not. You do pretty good. You could argue that way. But no matter what, you're either agreeing with me or making me feel better. And so there's no lose if you're honest about what you're doing in the relationship. But I can also guarantee you there's no win if you only open up the window to your lover's soul and tattle. And I know there's a few of you out there say, oh, I never do that, unless I think that I really know, and they're not going to be honest about it. See, that's the Achilles heel. Like, I have people say that, well, I have to tell you about him because he'll just lie to you. I have to be the one that tattles because he won't ever tell on himself, and then you won't know what's going on. And I really think that the addictive side effect of telling on other people, of tattling on them, is that it feels like you're doing some good. It feels like you're actually maybe even being helpful, but all you're doing is polarizing the relationship. All you're doing is, all you're really doing is making people defend themselves against you. Does that make sense? And so when that's all you're doing is making people defend themselves against you, it's really not going to, it's not going to help. It's not going to, it's not going to be able to bring the relationship to a higher place. It's going to create massive amounts of contention and arguments. So on the trust side of transparency literally is you allowing people to see you and into your soul because you're opening up and telling them about yourself. And commitment is when you're willing to make solid agreements that you understand. Oh, and there's two parts to commitment, remember? There's the agreement, and that means a clear, both of you understand the tenets of the agreement, and then the commitment to keep the agreement. I say that because I got to tell you, there's a whole host of folks out there that it feels so good to get an agreement that they relax, and then they forget to keep the agreement. And I want to caution you that, like, making an agreement isn't the end. That feels good, and you got a little adrenaline burst, and you feel like, yeah, we got somewhere, and we're both calm, and we both love each other. Let's make out and all that. But then you have to then over the next months, years, however long the agreement is intact or in place, you have to keep that agreement. So if the agreement is I'm going to learn how to budget and I'm going to learn how to manage money, then what I've got to do is actually sign up for a class and go listen and then earn some skills and then come home and talk with my partner and learn how to put those skills to use. See, making the agreement of I will learn to budget, I'll do better with money, isn't going to help the relationship. It'll feel good for a minute. She might even have some confidence in me for a minute. But if I don't go and actually follow through, then it's hollow. And eventually I just am that person that makes agreements and doesn't keep them. The other thing, remember about agreements, I know I'm laboring over this, but there's some things that I just see go wrong. There's couples that'll make agreements that aren't any good. I know it sounds terrible to put it that way. But when you make this kind of agreement, like I will get better at managing money. See, that's not an agreement that's going to be helpful, because I guarantee you if I said that to Chris, my wife, she would think, finally, we're going to save for retirement. And I'm going to think, I'll quit, blowing the change in the ashtray of my truck, and I'll just leave it there so that she can scoop it up and maybe save for a vacation. So a little bit better with money for me, I'll get better with money for me is like not blowing the ashtray money. And she's thinking of full-on funding a retirement program that I'm not even considering. So we're going to end up, I think I'm keeping my word, she thinks I'm a liar, and then we got a whole other thing to fight about. So the agreement needs to be, I will learn to manage money better by taking some classes, working with you on a household budget, and work towards a retirement plan that does not inhibit all of our fun immediately. That's an agreement I'd probably make. Because we got to have fun now, and sometimes I think she would probably, not putting my wife down because she's awesome, but she might deny all fun until we're completely out of debt and then have fun after. And I'm more well, let's have a whole bunch of fun, get in a whole bunch of debt, and then we're too old to have fun, we'll start paying the debt off. That's mine. Both of them probably wrong. Somewhere in the middle there, we probably have a great little agreement thing that we can have with each other. And that's really what we're talking about. So this idea about managing our relationships on these two pillars of trust and commitment by being transparent and making and keeping agreements is what I would call this trust metric. And by the way, I'm supposed to introduce myself every now and then. This is Dr. Matt Eschler with a Southern Utah counseling experience, recently merged with St. George Center for Families. Matt Eschler's my name. We can help you with high conflict in your marriage. We can also help you with a number of other mental health issues and coaching issues to get you on the way to success. Give us a call at 435-688-1111 and ask for any one of our coaches or therapists that can give you help with whatever you need. And there you have it. And so we've just finished up with a conversation about the two pillars of a healthy relationship being trust. And that means that being transparent with yourself and your own souls, not transparent about your partner and tattle. And then also commitment, where you make and keep agreements. And that's, again, important to make healthy agreements that have something to measure and then keep that agreement and measure it together so that you can both assess as you go. Now, as we move into the 6 suggestions that I want to give you to get yourself really healthy and trusted in your marriage or in your relationships, I want to throw to you that there's a guy that studied experts. This guy Miller, he studied experts, and another guy named Percheska, and they studied all of these just really critically acclaimed experts. There was a basketball player, Michael Jordan. There was a wrestler. There was a chess player. There was a couple of ballet dancers, that just these phenomenally successful people. There was some life coaches and some therapists involved in this study. And when they studied wild success without measuring money to do it, it was success meaning they were experts in their field. They came back with 3 really clear necessary ingredients or principles or laws that all of these experts applied without fail. Now, these 3 things were combined with a lot of other things like knowing how to bounce a basketball, that kind of stuff. But these 3 things were consistent, whether it was a ballerina, a basketball player, or a chess player. Very different, or a therapist that's an expert in their field. Very different plans of attack to obtaining expertise in each of those. But they all had these 3 things. Number 1, a solid sense of purpose for what they were doing. imagine how simple that is. Like, of course we know if I don't have any purpose for it, why am I going to do it? It's like I tell you in junior high, I didn't have one teacher that could explain to me the benefit of doing algebra. And so I had no purpose for algebra. Carl Brooks got the closest to anybody. It's mostly just because he was my friend. I liked him as a teacher. And so I tried to do algebra just to make him happy. But I never once did algebra in junior high or high school because I had a purpose for it to serve me, or even to serve someone in my family or someone I was close to. Like I'd even learn stuff to serve people that I care about. But there was nothing. And so I got through a doctorate degree in university setting without learning or dealing much with algebra. And I'm a little bit sad about that because someone could have helped me find purpose for it. So purpose is your number one in relationship as well. If you don't, if you have no purpose for the relationship, if it doesn't serve a need, help, if it doesn't give you a place to serve or help, if it doesn't meet any purpose in your soul or in your mind, you're going to fail. You're not going to put all 100% of you into it. If my main purpose in life is to drink and hang out with my guy friends, I ought not to get married because I'm going to just hurt some women that way because I don't have purpose for her. She's in the way of my buddies and drinking. So a solid sense of purpose for your relationship. Okay? Does that make sense? That's a key. Number two, after you have a solid sense of purpose, practice and train. Practice and train. In a marriage, it's the same thing. Solid sense of purpose and then date and court. Practice and train. If you get married and the whole purpose was to get yourself married, then you'll stop the courtship immediately after the honeymoon. And it'll slide into this boring, self-serving, icky kind of keep track of the last fight relationship. But those masters of relationship that get married and they continue to date, they continue to chase each other around the kitchen, they continue to be playful, they put time and energy and they train. They do that second thing, they train and they practice being married. They're the masters of relationship. They are the ones that really, they're phenomenal. They go all out. And you literally, you have to love that group of people, okay? And so, solid sense of purpose, and then practice and train in marriage. We call it courtship and dating. The third thing that these experts had, whether they were basketball players, chess players, ballerinas, or therapists that were experts in their field, the third thing is they craved constant critical feedback. I know a lot of you right now are screaming, no, I hate getting criticized. I didn't say criticized. I said critical feedback. And this one's hard for me because I don't like to disappoint people. I don't like to hear critical feedback because in my mind, I translate that to, oh, I've disappointed you. And other people that I've talked to, they think, well, if I get criticized, then I got to fight. I got to say, no way, that's not who I am. But really, it's okay to trust critical feedback. It's okay to say, all right, that's how you see me. Now, I've got to decide whether I want to be seen that way or not. But critical feedback is the only way that you can look in a mirror of other people's eyes and know whether you need to adjust through just understanding how the world sees you. I don't know about you, but I know that there's times in my own head I look and seem a lot different. I'm coming across different than I actually do. Like, I'll say something to Chris or I'll say something to one of my friends out there, and they'll come back a little bit later, maybe even right away, with what they thought I meant, and it's completely different, like different. I can't remember the circumstance, but this one particular time, I looked at my wife, says, well, I don't care. And she was like deeply offended. She was, you don't care? You don't care? What do you mean you don't care? I thought you were my best friend. And I go, well, I am. What do you mean? And she goes, well, if you just said you didn't care. And I'm thinking, well, I don't care. Like, and she was talking about, if I remember right, something about it was a short vacation, 3-day weekend. Where do we want to go? What would be fun? I just go, I don't care. And in my mind, it's like, man, anywhere with you is fine with me. And what she took was, he doesn't even care if we go. He doesn't even care to be with me. He doesn't even care enough to like plan it out with me. And I'm just thinking, I got a ton of stuff to do, and I don't care where we go. Just make it happen, because anywhere with you is fine with me because you're there. And that could have been a little bit romantic, though even as I watched my face on screen say it the way I just said it, it's still not cutting. So I come across wrong all the time in relationships. And so part of that receiving critical feedback, that third thing that experts do, is being willing to have someone hold a mirror up, and you look in the mirror and see you through their eyes and decide whether or not you need to change. Now, codependence means I don't want to disappoint you, so I will be whoever you want me to be. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is be willing to look in the mirror and say, yeah, you're right. That's something that I want to do different with you. It's something I want to do different with the community. I'm going to adjust my behavior. I'm going to like work on that. And I think that's just healthy. And I think we often avoid that in relationships because we want to be seen as perfect. If you're anything like me, I like to be adored. Like I love to be adored. And so I'll even cover up my weaknesses so that I can get adored. And that's probably the wrong approach to commitment and trust. See? And speaking of, I just received a gift, and it is a potion for heartburn. It's called baking soda. And so I hope I don't burp. This is Dr. Matt Eschler in Dixie State University's KDXI 100.3 radio station. We are halfway through the show, and I'm going to drink baking soda. So hold on one second. Now, some of you know what baking soda does. It goes down and eats up the gases in your stomach, and then sometimes it produces large noises that other people call burping, and I don't. I call them large noises. And so I hope that there are no large noises, and we're going to finish up talking about building trust through living a committed relationship. Now, and did I mention that Dr. Matt Eschler with St. George Center for Couples and Families recently merged with a Southern Utah counseling experience? 688-1111. Give us a call anytime for any of your counseling coaching needs. So we have the trust metric, and that is you build trust through being transparent. And if, again, not to labor over it, but it's not going to be worth anything for me to be transparent about all of my wife's problems and tattle on her, or her to be transparent with all of my problems and tattle on me. See, we said critical feedback, but critical feedback is different than tattling. Critical feedback is me saying, I want help being a better man. Will you tell me some of my things that you see that I could do better at? Tattling is, well, what he does is he comes in and he doesn't help out around the house, and what he does instead is he sits on his butt and he plays on Facebook, and all he does is talk on his phone and text people, and he doesn't like me and he doesn't help me, and I don't think he thinks I'm beautiful, and I don't think he's handsome at all either. See, that's tattling. Constructive feedback is, sweetheart, when you come home, I enjoy seeing you. However, I would like us to negotiate like some help when you come home so that we can pull the house together, so that we can have more time together without working, and maybe by around after dinner we'll both be done if you help when you get home, instead of maybe finishing up work or jumping on Facebook. And see, that's holding up a mirror to give critical feedback so that I can evolve to a better person. And so part of trust and transparency is being able to hear that and then talk about what's going on inside of you. And then commitment is making agreements that are sensible and then keeping them. And if you're willing to make and keep agreements and be transparent and help each other evolve, you're ready for these 6 steps, the 6 attuning habits that you as a couple can have to take your relationship to a juicy, passionate level. And I know that this sounds maybe a little bit facetious, or maybe like I'm teasing, but in a very literal sense, men, you will get more physical intimacy, and women, you will get more security and more really unconditional commitment. And that's what everybody wants. We all want those things. And so if you look at the acronym that this one research scientist, John Gottman, created, it's called Attune. And this ATTUNE is the acronym for what I'm going to go through. And it's literally a set of 6 principles that guide the building of trust. Because I want you to think about trust for a second. There's all kinds of, think about when we were first dating. And maybe even go all the way back. If you've known your spouse as long as I've known mine, go back to maybe 10th grade, and start to think about the very beginning stages of the relationship when you just feel trust. Like, is it because it was never tested? Haven't burned me yet? Are you just a naturally trusting person? Is that what it is? Maybe at the very beginning you weren't trusting at all, and they had to make little steps to earn that trust. Or maybe it was like, yeah, I trust that person, but I don't know because I've never asked him to keep his word with me yet. Those are the things that happen at the very beginning. And so when someone says to me, well, how do you have trust? Is it just like you just go and make an agreement? And I go, yeah. Well, does it take time? And I go, yeah. Is it all done in a conversation, in one conversation? I go, yep, trust is built in one conversation over time. And it's like, this conversation matters is what I'm really trying to say. So I try not to be overtly confusing, but think about it. If you look at every conversation that you have with your lover as important, and it's an avenue to either increase or decrease trust, you'll probably pay way more attention. You'll probably build in more truth, more transparency. You'll probably be more willing to go out on a limb and be vulnerable. And I got to tell you, I'm talking about stuff that is a weakness of mine, because part of my agenda is to, again, I've said this a few times, is to not disappoint people. And so if I think I'm going to disappoint Chris by saying this, I might not say it. Or if I want to do something tomorrow that I know is going to like make her upset, then sometimes what I do is I just don't tell her that that's what I'm going to do tomorrow. And sometimes if I go and do it, if she doesn't directly ask me with the right question, I just won't tell her. And that's the same as lying. And if she's listening to this, I've just like burned a couple of bridges on how to get myself out of trouble. But the whole point of it is do you do that? Have you ever left out information and not openly opened up and was transparent? Have you ever done that to fool or trick your lover, your partner? Well, that's exactly what hurts the relationship. And if you chalk it up to, well, it wasn't a very big thing, the only thing I'll give you a free pass on is if she says, do you like this dress? And you say, yeah, I like that dress, and you hated it, I guess you can get away with that. But you might consider just telling the truth. Hey, it's not my favorite dress, but you look good in anything. That might be a truth. The whole point is that we want to give constant critical feedback. We want to give constant unconditional regard, and we want to give constant attention to our relationship, trust, and commitment. And so if you trust because you haven't been lied to yet, or if you trust because you're just a trusting person, all of that has to be set aside, and just realize that every conversation, every circumstance, every interaction is another opportunity to increase the trust and the intimacy. And if you can imagine a long-lasting eternal relationship built on a constantly getting better, constantly moving to the next level of transparency, the next level of being vulnerable, the next level of trust, I think that's what we all want. And you and your spouse will be at different places. Your spouse might be really good at transparency, and you might be 50% there. And so that commitment you have to each other is the only thing that will keep the marriage alive. Let's just say, for example, let's say that it's Chris and I, and let's say that she's like 100% transparent, and that's one of the things that's easy for her. And let's say that I'm half the time I'm there, and the other half the time I'm just kind of wobbly. I'm on sea legs, and I need to mature and grow. And let's say that she's not committed to the relationship, really. How long do you think our relationship will last? See, not very long. The whole idea of that, for better or worse, until that whole marriage commitment, is she owns my weakness in transparency, and her job is to literally coach me. Now, my job is to be coachable. So when she gives me the critical feedback, I have to take it in, mull it around, and come back to her with, okay, here's what I heard, here's what I'm going to do, and here's an agreement that I'm willing to make, and we'll take it up a notch. And as she's committed and I'm committed, I'm going to hear her, and she's going to hear me, and we're going to work together in a cooperative fashion to take our relationship to that juicy passionate, like highest place possible. So that's the whole idea. That's the whole idea of commitment. That's the whole idea of understanding that we're all at different places. And I might even have a strength or two that she can do the same with me. She can like say, I need some help with that, and I can give her the training, the practice, the courtship around it, and then we can create this synergy towards feedback and work with each other towards she's perfect at something as well. And we both leave this world into the next with our own strengths, but then we've also learned our lover's strengths, and we've also owned our lover's strengths. Does that click in for you? So trust is a little bit like that. Trust is something that we can like work through, earn through each conversation, and part of attunement is the first principle is to become aware. Now, what do I mean when I say awareness? What would you say? What comes to mind when I say awareness? What comes to your mind when I say be aware, be aware? So in a relationship, what awareness is to have a deep, clear understanding of where you're at and coming from, and then listen until you're aware of what your lover's saying to you. So if we sit down together and I say something like, well, what you do is you just think nothing matters. You just think that all you've got to do is work. And that's the road to a lacking of awareness. That's a judgment. It's working their side of the street. It's working their side of the relationship. It's telling them how they feel and think. And even if you're right, it's not a healthy way to communicate. Awareness means here's what triggers me and here's what was going on for me, and to have all the time you need to say it, and then to give your partner all the time they need to express themselves and what they are seeing and how they're feeling. Once you understand how you're seeing the world together, then you can start pointing at, okay, so it would help me if you would. What do you think? And then you make an agreement. So let's say we're talking about money management. We talked about intimate spending plans. What if we're talking about a vacation, and we talk through this whole thing, and we both understand that we want a couple of week vacation and we want to save this much money for it. And then my spouse looks at me and says, okay, so I would, I want you to know that I think that I'm willing to give up most day-to-day money wasting, expenses. Wow, I don't even know what I'm trying to say. Like she says, I will not eat 2 bags of Cheetos a day, and that would save $10, and 10 Red Bulls a day, that would save $50. And she would gladly give that stuff up. And then she might look at me and say, but I don't think you're willing to sacrifice anything for a budget. Like, you want to spend, it seems, on all these things, but then save by maybe me sacrificing getting stuff that I want. And that's an okay thing for her to say, because what she's sharing is an observation, and she's asking me if I see it. And so I've got an opportunity now to either lie to her and say, nope, that's not true. I don't ever buy Red Bull, and I don't ever buy anything irresponsible. Or I can tell her the truth and say, boy, it's going to be tough for me. Let's talk about how to scale down. And she might say, yeah, but you've been scaling down for 10 years. And she's thinking 30 years. But I'm thinking 10 years. I'm only going to go that far. And then what you do is you just like hide it and sneak it. And she would rather just hear me say, I'm going to drink 10 Red Bulls a day, and so we got a budget around that. And maybe we cut our vacation expense down. But the whole point is that if we both get clear with what's necessary, then we've got choices. And so we'll probably, to go to Costa Rica, we'll probably need to like sacrifice all the Red Bull, and I probably think that's worth it. So I would just give it up, and then we would have me on a budget and her on a budget. But it'd all be done by cooperation instead of kind of yelling at each other and arm wrestling about it. Does that make sense? So awareness is being really aware of who you are, and then talk until you're aware of the agreement that you're going to make with each other about change or growth or adjustment. And that's all awareness. That's all being willing to not know everything, but be willing to ask questions until you're aware. The second thing is turn toward each other. Like, a lot of couples do what I call a really harsh startup. And what that would look like is if I walk in the front door of my house and I'm talking on the phone, and I get off the phone and somebody says, boy, can't even come in and say hello. You come in on the phone, it's like you never stop working. See, that's a harsh startup. That's an invitation to fight. That's an invitation to like have bad feelings. But what if I erase that out of your mind and I walk in, I'm on the phone, I get off the phone, and I get a great big hug, and I get a, man, it's really good to see you. And I really enjoy when you come in and find me and we are able to spend a few minutes together. See, that's a soft startup. And then we can talk about what gets in the way of that, which might be me on the phone too much. And that would be okay every day of the week. And so part of having a long-lasting, masterful relationship that's juicy and passionate is turn toward each other with soft starts, soft, gentle starts, and then work into the critical feedback after you have an understanding of each other and after you've talked about what you want and what you like. The next one is tolerance. Tolerance is a tough one for all of us, I think. You might be a person that's mastered tolerance and that you feel like, yeah, I'm a tolerant person. But I think what we do is we form these cognitive maps. If you could look at it like that, you've got in your brain, you've got this life that you've lived. And part of that is you gain knowledge of how things ought to look. You gain knowledge of what the world looks like when you're comfortable and also what's painful. And you build these maps. It's almost like if I say to you, it's got a place where you sit down with your butt and it's got a place to lean back. So you sit down, you lean back on a backrest, and it's got 4 legs that go to the ground that hold you about 3 feet off the ground. What am I describing? Yeah, all of you said a chair. Now let's take that and we say we take the back off of it so there's no backrest, and we take one of the legs off. Now it's got 3 legs, 3 pegs going to the ground, and you've got a place for your butt where you sit down on it, and it's about maybe 3.5 feet off the ground. What is it? And everybody says, yep, it's a stool. So why do you know it's a chair with that description? Why would that ever add up to a chair? Like I didn't even say the word chair or stool. And you're saying, well, because I know what a chair looks like. And I go, since when? You go, since about 3 years old. You knew what a chair was because somebody explained to you once chair and you thought, okay, place for your butt, your back, and there's 4 legs and you sit in it. It's a chair and you learned it and you never have to learn it again because you now have what? A cognitive map of a chair. And part of having a cognitive map of a chair in your head is making it possible for you to save time. You don't have to have people explain to you what you're pulling out of under the table for dinner. It's a chair to sit down at the dining table. You don't have to have them explain that. They just say, hey, go sit in one of those chairs. It doesn't matter which one, and you know what a chair is, and you go sit in one. And you don't have to relearn it. Well, we have cognitive maps for almost everything, including how marriage should look. So imagine you and your lover meeting together and joining in marriage, and then you go on the honeymoon, and you come home from the honeymoon, and she believes strongly that marriage is all about unity and partnership, and she goes to work, you go to work, and you pull your money together into one great big pot to spend as far as your bills and hard costs. And let's say you come from a family and you come from a cognitive map of marriage. A really healthy, solid marriage is where the wife stays home and has babies and raises kids, and you go to work and make enough money for all of your needs financially, and she has enough nurturing skill to make sure everybody feels warm and comfy. And you come home and say, when are you going to quit your job? And she says, I'm not quitting my job. And you say, but wait a minute, we're married. And she goes, yeah, we are. And we're 2 adults that work. And you say, no, the way I see marriages. And so now we have a problem, right? The cognitive maps about marriage, about what partnership looks like, is vastly different. And a lot of times what we do is we believe our cognitive map is correct, and we are not tolerant of their cognitive map. See, some of you out there, even in that example, were saying, but he's right. And others were saying, no way, don't be giving up that job for a man. You got to keep your job because what if they bail on you? You got to make sure you're safe. And then the other one say, but if you're planning on them bailing on you, why'd you marry him? Well, I'm not planning. I'm just going to be safe in case. I like to work. I'm not a big nurturer. I don't like to stay home all the time. I like to nurture, but not all the time. I want to go work. I want to make my own money. So see, they're both right. They're both on the pathway to perfection, but If they're not tolerant of each other, then they will never build a juicy, passionate relationship. Now, some of you are right now thinking just what I'm thinking, but you can't do both of those and be happy. Like, you can't want a home wife or a housewife and a working wife at the same time. You've got to choose one. Or you can't want to stay home and not have a job outside of the home and just raise kids and nurture, not just, but raise kids and nurture, and want a career. You can't do both. But see, here's what I'm going to challenge you to. I'm going to challenge you to be tolerant. What does that mean, really? In the real world, what does tolerance mean? What it means is, number one, don't be stuck on your position being right. Number two, tolerance means having the place and the space to explain your point of view in a very clear, concise way without interruption and judgment. And then number three, it's about listening to the other person's point of view without judgment and tolerance. And once you both hear each other completely, once you both understand each other's point of view, find a point of view that you both love and do that. It might be completely different than what you both wanted. And I always use the example, this is what tolerance is. I want a milkshake and my wife wants a hamburger. We can't go get some milk and some red meat and blend it up and pretend we're going to like it. See, tolerance doesn't mean do something that neither of you will like. Tolerance doesn't mean give up your values. What tolerance means is don't be stuck on it has to be a milkshake. Don't be stuck on it has to be a hamburger. Because we were talking and we both really like pizza. So I can give up a milkshake for pizza. She can give up a hamburger for pizza. And so we both went for a whole other thing, a whole other system, because it made sense and we liked it. Well, that tolerance gives you an opportunity to do that on everything. Tolerance means I'm not going to be stuck on my position. I'm going to hear you out. And I trust that you're not going to be stuck on your position. See, intolerant people won't change their position. Intolerant people beat each other up with their positions. Tolerant people live with each other, give feedback, become aware of each other's needs, and find something that meets both of your needs, both spiritually, both temporally, both with your core personality. I guess I want to promise you that we have a heavenly Father that loves us. And he wouldn't leave us stuck with two options, ever. It's never, ever just me versus you. What it always is are we willing to be tolerant and work through and find another option that we both like? And I get there's some real values-laden conversations that need to be had out there. And I get that sometimes these values-laden conversations can become painful and can become polarizing. I understand that, and let's understand that there is things that we may have to just part company over, but we will at least do it fully aware of why. A couple might, I'm thinking of a couple that one wanted an open marriage and the other one didn't, and there really isn't a like you can't decide that, like, look, let's just go on vacations together and we'll have open marriages on vacations. There might be some times where you decide that, look, some of the things that you want and that you're not willing to negotiate with me, part of me being tolerant of you is to let you go. If I don't want to live with an alcoholic and you have to drink and you will not tolerate a sober life and I will not tolerate alcoholism in my household with my child, then there is a time where it's tolerant of us to say we need to part before we hate each other. We need to be able to end the relationship even before we literally kill each other with our intolerance. And I don't have any judgment towards either side of it, other than I know that there is some boundaries that my wife has and some boundaries that I have that are really healthy boundaries that we just understand that if we cannot submit to these boundaries, there may be an end of the relationship. And that doesn't mean we have unconditional love. It means that we have very, very, no, that doesn't mean we have conditional love. What we have is unconditional love, which means she'll leave me before she hates me over the thing. Does that click for all of you? And I know that's hard doctrine, but I think it's something that's important to understand, that tolerance doesn't mean throw your values and boundaries away. What tolerance means is do an honest search for a way to do it without both of you hurting and get all your needs met in another healthy way, or be honest enough with each other that I'm not going to give up what you need me to give up, and it's a boundary-based thing that comes right down to how you live your life. We might need to go find other partners that are more like us. So that's tolerance. Tolerance is being willing to search and being willing to hear each other out, to turn toward each other in conversation instead of polarizing and having a harsh startup, and to become very aware of each other's needs and weaknesses and strengths, and be able to move our relationship to a higher place. Understanding is the fourth one, understanding. What do I mean by understanding? By the way, this is Dr. Matt Eschler with a Southern Utah counseling experience. Give me a call for all of your counseling needs, 435-688-1111. And I was going to tease my spouse and give you her cell number so that you would all call her. And I thought, well, that's dumb. I don't want people calling her, because that would be, why would I want that? So I'm not going to. 435-688-1111. Understanding that you'll get Dr. Matt Eschler and his team of experts that will help you with any of your counseling and coaching needs. There you go. So understanding, after you are aware of each other's needs, turn toward each other and have soft startup versus harsh startup. You learn how to be tolerant, which means really understand and hear each other out and make a concerted effort to find avenues of success in your relationship by finding that option that you both like. And then having a deeper understanding of truth with each other. Search truth, study truth. Learn to understand what the other person really thinks instead of what you assume they think. Number 5, learn how to respond to each other versus react. My son Nephi the other day was saying, look, there's two kinds of people. There's people that act and people that are acted upon. There's people that react to everything in an impulsive way, or people that just respond based upon some guiding principle. And I think he's right. I think non-defensive responses are the only way to build trust and commitment. And this is difficult for me. I'm pretty sure I've got Italian in me, and I'm not sure if Italians do this, so that might sound like a judgment statement. But what I'm talking about is I've got some passion where a lot of times I think being defensive and a good, healthy argument is like something you're supposed to do. And really, it's not. Really, it doesn't get you anywhere but to an apology necessary. And so what you do is you have a set of guiding values and principles, and then respond to the people that you love based upon who you are, rather than not wanting to disappoint them, or rather than just trying to be agreeable or disagreeable. Have some purpose and have that be your guiding star to respond well. So if someone cuts me off on state route and I'm driving down the road, whether my wife's there or not, and I decide to flip them off and pull up beside them or get right on their bumper and scare them, or whatever I'm trying to do, prove to them how angry I am, what purpose am I serving? Well, I'm serving the I'm right and you're wrong, and I'm a good driver and you're a schmucky driver, and I'm powerful and you're stupid. That's my purpose. Is that really what runs my life? If it is, it's not healthy. What if my purpose is to be a person that serves others, helps people find their best self, and I really want to be just an incredible husband and father? Somebody cuts me off, what I'm going to do is maybe just tap my brakes and pull and back off maybe another 20 feet just to give him room. Now, what have I lost? Some of you might say, well, you lost respect. No, I lost 20 feet of road space. I will get to my destination a tenth of a second slower than I would have. Well, what if people treat you like a doormat? No, I don't think cutting me off on the roads treat me like a doormat. They're just either in a hurry, unaware, or maybe they are lack social skills, but nothing that I do in reaction to that's going to help any of that. So non-defensive responding, respond to your purpose, be genuinely who you are and who you want to be. And then the final one in this quest for trust and commitment in a relationship is empathy. I've got to tell you, I think my wife has had to have 10 people worth of empathy to live with me, because coming into a relationship, I was a bit of a train wreck, and I'm probably 80% train wreck still, because she's empathized me into some health. And what I mean by empathy is really put yourself in your partner's shoes and feel for them. Don't always automatically assume, or even a few times assume, that they are just trying to hurt you. If you have empathy, what you do first is you search for, what is the purpose, that why I know he loves me. I know he's a kind person. Why would he do that? There must be an explanation besides he's a jerk. Now, it might boil down to I'm a jerk in that particular moment. But empathy requires you to have the positive sentiment filter on first. So if you have a positive sentiment filter on first, then empathy becomes easy, and you'll just do much better. Now, I've got to end the show because there's a show coming on. We're going to talk about those again next week, and finish up with another idea around intimate spending patterns. And so watch for us next Friday. Dr. Matt Eschler with a Southern Utah Counseling Experience coming to you live. Thank you for tuning in, and we will see you next week.